Hello and welcome back to Let's All Laugh At, the football podcast that thrives on the expense of someone else. I'm George, and today I'm joined by an all-new panel for this episode. We have blogger and podcaster on Life's a Pitch and Arsenal fan Johnny Hunt, and last word on sport cricket and extra time talk writer and Manchester United fan Dan Clubb. Lads, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Good to hear. So yeah, seeing as we have two brand new people of completely different fans of completely different clubs that we haven't covered before really in depth on this show so far, I thought I'd get a bit of a inside perspective from them first. So we'll start with you, Johnny, over at Arsenal. We have covered you somewhat on the show before. I mean, it was the very first episode. We were talking about the woes of Arsenal after your loss to Brighton. And since then, you've won about 4 in a row and then drawn another one. So you can thank us for that upturn in form. So, I mean, it's been an interesting season for you lot, to say the least. What do you make of it as an insider?
Well, it's better now Emery's not there. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty dire under Emery. And in December when he got the sack, I was dancing around my living room, to be honest with you, because the football was dire. I was there on his last game against Frankfurt, and it was just. Oh, it was terrible. But under Arteta, we're playing a lot better. He's turned a few players like Mustafi, who I thought was on his way out the door. He's turned him into quite a decent defender, and we're looking all right. We're looking okay. Unfortunately, against Leicester the other night, we didn't hold out, but it was a big point, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Leicester, up to be fair, weren't the best of form. They smashed us the couple of days before, to be fair. But I mean, we weren't exactly at our best. I think it's interesting you mentioned Mustafi. I mean, I remember the game against us last year where at your place, I was actually at that game myself. I was in the away end. And yeah, I remember loads of Arsenal fans, calling for his head. He definitely looked worse for wear in that game. I'd arguably gifted us the win. So it's interesting to see the sort of effect that Arteta's had, and definitely very positive for the future, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And Arteta needs time. He needs to be backed in the summer or the September, whenever the transfer window is going to be. I don't know yet, but he needs to be backed because he's a very new manager. But from what I've seen so far, I'm quite looking forward to see how he gets on.
Yeah. Do you think he will be backed? Because I mean, we saw there's been summers before where Arsenal have been reluctant to spend, and it's been well documented at this point. I mean, last summer, you can argue they did back him. Obviously, they brought in Pepe, they brought in Tierney. The rest of them slipping my mind, I'm afraid. I think, David Luiz as well, of course. For better or for worse, he was backed. So, can you see them doing the same again this summer?
I think they've got to. I mean, as I say, he's a new manager. He's only been in charge for 3 months. Well, take away lockdown, it's been 3 months. Yeah. It's getting us to tick a little bit. I think we've got Saliba coming in as well. So I mean, I think a couple more players in a couple of positions. I think I'm not saying we'll win the league next year. That's not going to happen in a month of Sundays. But I think next season, if we get a few players in, of course we've got some brilliant youngsters as well, like Bukayo Saka, who's out of this world. So if we can get the young lads playing as well, and a few more experienced players around them, I think we could be all right. Yeah,
good to hear. Dan, as more of an outsider / top 4, top 6 European rival, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's been some debates on whether or not Arsenal could be that this season, but do you think that rebuild? What do you reckon of the rebuilding job that Arsenal have got at the moment? And do you think that they will be in amongst yourselves with the challenge for the Champions League or whatever next season?
Well, before I answer that, I've got to pick you up on something. I support Liverpool, not Manchester United.
Oh my
God. Now, normally I'd let that slide, but that's a big no-no, unfortunately.
No, it's my fault. Whose bio was I looking at? Jesus Christ. I know what it was. I know what it was. It was Andrew telling us I got one Arsenal fan and one Man United fan, and right. I think it was the other guy in the group. I forget who it was. Just left. I think that must have been him.
I see. Right.
Got you on. So. I'm going to leave that in because, including Let's All Laugh At, that includes Let's All Laugh At the host. I'm not going to be biased here.
Yeah. So I was arguing with Andrew yesterday about my hatred for Man City, so maybe it stems from that.
Possibly. I mean, I don't remember that conversation personally, so I'm not sure I can even use that excuse. But will we phrase that question slightly then, as a complete outsider?
I'm happy to answer it.
I mean, unless you somehow think Liverpool are going to do a complete nosedive and not even get Champions League next season, which would be absolutely incredible, then yeah, I guess I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, no, as far as Arsenal go, just to finish off on that point, it's a strange one with Arsenal because obviously growing up, we all remember them being the superpower really with Manchester United for a long time before Chelsea, City, and ourselves had a resurgence. But recently, it's interesting. They seem to lack a core even now, and obviously you speak about them improving, and things are getting better under Arteta, but they still lack that. They haven't had it since Vieira is always the line. You know, they haven't got that combative midfielder or defensive type that'll still sort things out. If they go 1-0 up in a game, 2-0 up in a game, you never feel like it's over with Arsenal.
No, totally. Even as from the perspective of myself, as a Crystal Palace fan, even though the football we play is hardly spectacular, you do feel like when we do take the league, I think we've yet to lose a game this season where we've taken the lead. I mean, I know we've had a couple of draws. I remember back in the beginning of the season when Wolves got that last-minute equaliser, but other than that, we've been pretty solid. So, I mean, it must be, particularly when you're, I forget how many points Arsenal have dropped from losing position, from winning positions, but it's quite a few, I seem to remember. And, you know, when you're a fan of when you're trying to push for the Champions League and possibly the title, at least that was their aim at the start of the season, then it's not an easy thing to come back from. It's quite sickening looking at it almost.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's totally. Yeah.
Not to compound or anything.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, we've dropped so many points from winning positions this season, loads. Like Watford earlier on in the season, we're 2-0 up at Vicarage Road, threw it away. Obviously, went Tuesday night against Leicester, threw it away. So many games we've done that, and it's if we could have held on, we could have been a little bit harder than where we are.
It reminds me of what Liverpool used to do. I remember going to a lot of Liverpool games, and we'd be 2-0 up. I remember Bournemouth game at home in particular. And they got a goal like the 80th minute, and from that point on, it was just a barrage, and we didn't have anyone to close it down and just shut the game off. They ended up getting a late equaliser, and that's what hurt you.
Yeah, is that a mentality thing? Do you think, Johnny? Because I mean, again, like Dan said, that it was once you let one goal in, you sort of just fold and let them come at you. I mean, is that what's been happening with Arsenal over the last little while?
Yeah, absolutely. We always capitulate, as we go 1-0 up, 2-0 up, and Arsenal will always give you a chance because we're not very good at defending. But I think under Arteta, from what I've seen, and just purely my opinion, I think we look a little bit better defensively, which is not exactly hard, but we do look a little bit better. I mean, against Leicester, I thought we defended really well against Vardy, and Leicester are a good side, and I thought we were defending really well. Just unfortunately, we couldn't hold out for the 3 points, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of 3 points, I mean, it's the big one next, I say next week, in a couple of days more, like July the 12th. Spurs away, North London derby. I mean, just quick side note, has anyone else noticed that for like the past 10 years or so, it's always been Arsenal at home first and then Spurs away, like Spurs at home? I don't know why, it's just something that's really bothered me. It's like, just give us a bit of a change for once. I'm probably the only person in the world who cares about that, but there you go.
I haven't.
But yeah, I mean, Spurs just drew against Bournemouth. I believe that game's finished now. 0-0 it finished. Conceded a 90th minute goal, but was ruled out for VAR. It's hard to say how which way is going to go. It's sort of a case of who turns up and who doesn't, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm quietly confident because I'm always confident against Spurs. But it's going to be a really interesting game because the North London derby is one of the biggest derbies out there, and I mean the atmosphere is always brilliant. It's going to be a weird one, having no fans, but I think it's going to be an interesting one. I'm quite confident, and I don't know why. Stupid faith, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I suppose I can give for that is, and it's a really bad argument, but football is weird. Like sometimes, I mean, I see it with my club all the time, where we'll have this horrendous run and then just all of a sudden get a win out against Man City out of nowhere, or we'll win 4 in a row and then lose to Burnley at home. So, I mean, I think, to be honest, if I had to put my money on anyone, it would probably be Arsenal, simply because you are in much better form right now. And you sort of seem to have found your feet, albeit against not the best of teams. And when you came up against a better team like Leicester, although the Wolves away victory, to be fair, was a good one. Now I say that, but the Leicester game was a bit more, dodgy. And of course, it's a derby, so form goes out the window. So it's going to be interesting to see. Dan, what are your thoughts on the game?
On the derby? It's a very interesting one because historically, in the past 2-3 years, they've always been kind of evenly matched, and they probably still are, but now a little bit further down the table than normal. Normally, it's like a top 4 sort of clash as well as a London derby, and this time, I don't know exactly, but it's more of a upper mid-table clash.
I mean, they're 8th and 9th right now, respectively. Yeah. Spurs 9th, Arsenal 8th. So
yeah, exactly. So it's still a big clash being a London derby, but that top 4 element is almost pie in the sky for both of them at the minute, especially with Tottenham dropping more points there. So Yeah, it'd be a good game. Two sides who haven't been convincing, two new managers, especially in Arteta. And the Mourinho era, I don't think is a match made in heaven at Tottenham. I don't see how that works in the long run, to be honest. Just a Daniel Levy thing there. I don't see how them two get on in the slightest. But Arsenal, yeah, Arsenal will come again. I'm almost certain of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Tottenham on the weekend either.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we had the Spurs and Mourinho discussion last week on the podcast for a bit. I mean, just to sum it up again, I think basically, I mean, the idea for bringing him in was to sort of a short-term success. All right, he might not be the best for longevity sense, but he'll be able to at least deliver a trophy or two and get the heyday off their backs. And that hasn't worked so far. I mean, whether or not, he can do it in a second season if he gets backed. But, I mean, again, like Arsenal, it's a club that has a history of not backing the managers so well. So it's going to be. I'll be honest. I'm excited for the Champions League race next season as well, because you have so many more clubs in the mix now. Wolves, Leicester. I mean, I doubt Sheffield. I don't know if Sheffield United will be able to carry it on into next season, but even if they could, it would be one hell of a match for sure. And then you have clubs like Everton and Southampton as well, who have sort of come up a bit and may be able to push that sort of top 8 sort of bracket. So I'm interested in that for sure. But yeah, moving on to Liverpool this time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be honest. As soon as I heard you speak for the first time, I was like, oh god, I've made the worst, haven't I? But yeah, I mean, where do we start with your season? Not much else that needs to be said. I suppose we should start with the last result, 3-1 against Brighton. Not the most comfortable of victories over the course of the game, but a convincing scoreline, to be sure.
Yeah, it's as you alluded to, really, it's interesting. Obviously, we've had the success of the season, if you like. It's a weird scenario at the moment. It's kind of all wrapped up. So it's a strange scenario at the moment. But yeah, you can't not be happy for obvious reasons. As for the games now, the more recent ones, last night in particular, the Brighton one, yeah, I thought Brighton were really good. I was really impressed, actually. A little bit naive early on, maybe, trying to pass out from the back against, well, I might be biased, but the best pressing side, probably in Europe, I'd say. And we stole it twice early doors and got 2 early goals. But after that, to be fair to Brighton, they were really good. And I'm not surprised they look relatively safe now, given the way they played last night. As for us, yeah, it's just about looking to the future, I suppose, which is strange to say, but it's also a really nice position to be in. Yeah, how we develop, because obviously Man City in particular, Manchester United are going to strengthen Chelsea. We've already started strengthening. Whether that bridges the 30-odd point gap that currently stands is a different story. But it's silly to say I have concerns, because I don't, but I do have slight trepidation about our owners' lack of spending. Only because I know for a fact that Man City, even though the gap is currently so big, I just know they're going to go and buy 3, 4, maybe even 5, 40 million, 30 million pound players. And if we kind of stand still, all of a sudden that gap goes, especially when City is so good to begin with, let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the thoughts that's been cropping in my mind as well, because as good as Liverpool have been this season, we know, let's face it, it's been a pretty pitiful title defence from Man City, and I'm sure Guardiola will be more than keen to bounce back with aplomb next time. So, I mean, they'll be keen to take Liverpool down. Chelsea, we know, have already strengthened massively before the window's even properly started. Yeah. So, they'll be hungry. I think it's probably too early for Leicester as well, given the form they're on as well, and Man United as well. Even though they have improved, I still think they've got a ways to go. So it'll be between those three really, and even then, I think Chelsea are probably a bit outsiders compared to City and Liverpool. So in terms of the remaining games, what do you think the priority is going to be for the remaining games? Because we've obviously seen a lot of squad rotation. We've seen some of the youngsters come on, like Elliott and Curtis Jones. Obviously, Minamino came on for a bit. I mean, I know not a youngster, but he's a new signing. Is that, I suppose, the rest of the season is going to be sort of testing where the strengths and weaknesses are, and where do you think the weaknesses are that need to be strengthened?
Yeah, well, there definitely are some. It's a strange one, because obviously our dominance, even though of recent times in particular, it's fell off somewhat, but the damage is already done. Just on the turn of Christmas, really, the damage was done in this league. It was, although nobody liked to admit it, certainly not myself, the league was finished quite a long time ago, but nobody wanted to say it. Certainly not when football shut down, essentially. But yeah, in terms of the remaining fixtures, I'd like to see. I personally am desperate to break that Man City Centurions record, so our remaining fixtures aren't too bad. We've got Burnley on Saturday, and probably our most difficult game on paper certainly is Chelsea at home. So I'd like to see us go full strength generally, and also see a bit more of the youngsters, because Neco Williams have been particularly impressive. He started last night left back out of position, but he's been really good when he's come on. So yeah, I'd like to see us go as strong as possible in the main to try and break that record. But yeah, in terms of this future and strengthening, it is more squad players. We've been linked with obviously Thiago Alcantara from Bayern Munich recently, but that would give us so many midfielders. It's untrue. I don't really see how he fits in. Although he's a brilliant player, he's 29, had injuries, doesn't really fit the mould of what we do spend our money on when we do spend it of recent times. So I think aside from potentially bringing someone like that in is a bit of a luxury for us, we definitely need some cover for Andy Robertson at left back, because every time he's injured, or he's never really suspended, but if he is, say, it's James Milner, or it's Joe Gomez, or it's potentially Neco Williams, and all three of them are playing out of position. It's not, and the balance of the side changes completely. I don't go into tactical things, but no left footer on the left-hand side instantly changes everything about the way we play. So definitely a left-back cover. And aside from that, probably somebody to push the front three a little bit more, because Divock Origi simply hasn't cut it. He's had some wonderful moments for Liverpool, scored some big goals in some massive games. But when he starts, and even of late when he comes on, there's a massive drop-off in standard from him to the likes of Salah, Firmino and Mane. So probably somebody else to push them. And it looked like it's going to be Werner for a long time, but obviously he's not gone to Chelsea. So we need to find somebody different.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear. It's interesting to see. Well, I don't know if you can call them cracks, but sort of like, areas that need to be polished. How many there are from an actual insider. Even from a season like Liverpool's, it's definitely interesting to hear. Johnny, I mean, Dan mentioned Liverpool's sort of lack. I will call it lack of net spend, because a lot of the players that they've brought in have typically been from bigger sales. As a supporter of a club who for a long time, was talking about not investing and all the sorts of talk that came out. Do you think the situations are comparable at all? Is there any similarities that you can see?
Yeah, a little bit, but I think Liverpool's recruitment has been a lot better. They've brought players like Sadio Mane in, who's, well, there aren't many words to describe that man. I think he's Liverpool's best player, if I'm honest. They bought Andy Robertson for not very much money compared to what he's worth now. Compared to Arsenal, we're paying someone like Mesut Ozil a lot of money a week, and he barely plays, and he's not even playing. So I think they are comparable, but I think Liverpool's recruitment over the past 4 or 5 years have definitely been better than Arsenal.
Yeah, no, I think we can agree on that. So okay, with that out of the way, let's move on to one of the topics has cropped up in the last couple of days, and that's obviously ever since the restart, the rules have been introduced that have allowed teams to make, because of the increased amount of game time and the lack of rest between them, or decreased rest between games, I should say, not increased game time. It's not like we're playing games twice as long. But
feels like it sometimes, though, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Especially when you've been watching some of the games I have of the past couple of weeks. But yeah, basically, there's been increased rules for 5 substitutes to be allowed instead of 3. I mean, it's not 5 substitution periods. It's you have 3 substitution periods, but you're allowed 5 between them. But if you use up only 3 and 3 or 4 and 3, you're not allowed any more than that. But the Premier League have made the decision they want to carry this on into next season. I mean, it's interesting to hear from you guys as fans of bigger clubs with bigger squads. What do you guys make of this change?
I mean, I don't. It's difficult to have an opinion, really. I don't really know. I've never really thought about it, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. I think the 5 substitutions is a little bit much. I think it kind of kills games a little bit. You spend more time having subs than you do actually playing football sometimes, and I'm not sure if I'm a fan, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I get that side of things. It's a strange one. You mentioned the fact bigger clubs, which obviously naturally Liverpool and Arsenal both are, but neither of us have particularly fantastically deep squads. Certainly not from a Liverpool point of view. I can talk with quite a lot of knowledge about us, obviously. If you go past I even mentioned the likes of Origi coming on as a first choice striker in terms of backup. And I'm not convinced that the standard maintains even then. And then obviously you go deeper than that. You're looking at the likes of Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, and they're good, potentially going to be good players. But right now, we don't exactly benefit from bringing them on late in games. It doesn't actually change your game necessarily yet. But the likes of our main rivals and my old friends Man City, they have a wealth of resources. The 5 substitutes will benefit. But in terms of actually football in the main, potentially having 5 substitutes next year, it doesn't. It's one of them because people forget that at some point, I think it was early 60s, there was no substitutes. And then you were allowed 1 and then 2. And it's kind of developed all the time. Football changes every 5, 6, 7, whatever amount of years. So this is just potentially another change. It's been enforced by something bizarre happening in the world. But it's just another development of football. And if it stays, so be it. We'll get used to it in 2 years' time. We won't even talk about it. It'll just be 5 subs. It's just one of them things.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. Interesting perspective. I mean, the reason I said about bigger clubs with bigger squads is because the Palace Chelsea game the other night. I mean, they brought on Loftus-Cheek, Jorginho, and Tammy Abraham.
Yeah.
And they still had the likes of Pedro, Marcus Alonso, Hudson-Odoi, Batshuayi, all on the bench. So, I mean, I suppose where I was going with that is that the clubs that ultimately have the deeper squads and have the money to pay for the deeper squads are going to be in an advantage there because they'll be able to rotate more. But I mean, I suppose you can argue that's just the nature of being a bigger club with more money and being able to bring in the players.
It is to an extent, yeah. And you're dead right in what you say, because you named the names there, and 100% that is serious strength on the bench, and having the capabilities of continuously bringing them on is a massive advantage. Whereas I don't know the Palace bench, but I know a lot of the so-called lesser clubs.
Our bench is nowhere near as good, I can promise you that.
Well, exactly. But I know a lot of the lesser clubs. Was it Burnley struggled to fill their bench for a couple of games? They only had. You're allowed 10, are you, or 9 now? When they only had like 5 or 6 on the bench. I think 2 of them were goalkeepers. So there's definitely an advantage to being a bigger club if you've got 5 subs. 100%. I don't doubt that for a second. There's also I've listened earlier on, there's the element of the drinks break. They're looking to continue that as well, potentially, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm even less sure about that one. I mean, it makes sense in hotter weather. They've done it in the games before, but I think unless you are playing 2 or 3 games a week like we currently are now, I really don't see much point for it. Because especially, again, there's rules that, you're not allowed to give like team talks or tactics during that break, but no one follows it. We saw, was it Sheffield United who had their tactics up against Wolves, like on the board, literally while they were having their drinks over? Like, no one's going to stick to it.
No, I think Chris Wilde has been quite honest and vocal about the fact that it is a tactical break, and it essentially is 4 quarters now. I'm not sure I like it right now. In fact, I don't like it right now at all. But it's again kind of one of the things. If it was to stay, come a year from now, we probably just have it as part of the course.
I also think as well, like with the break, it can be. I mean, I don't know if it's going to work the whole way through next season, because as an Arsenal fan, if Arsenal are against someone and we're putting the pressure on, and all of a sudden there's a drinks break, it could suck the life out of your attacking system. Or if you're for a defensive side, it could really help you out. So I think it's for the first couple of games, I think we have a problem with the drinks break. But as the players are getting fitter and match fit now, I don't really see the point of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Going back to the 5 subs thing very quickly, I do take up your point, like you say, that it's been a case where we haven't had subs and then we've slowly gotten higher and higher. So I suppose you could definitely look at it that way. And I think you're right. I think after a couple of months, people will just it'll be part and parcel of the game.
That's not to say I don't particularly agree with it, and I'm not a huge fan of it either, if I'm honest. Even though, as a fan of a bigger club, we'd have an advantage in a lot of ways over the smaller side, and more so. But like you touched upon there, it just comes under that bracket of the bigger clubs with the more money have an advantage regardless. 5 subs is just another element to that. Whether it's unfair at that point is a different story.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a fine line between what's unfair and what's impractical, because every club can argue anything is unfair from your perspective, and so there's going to be winners and losers in every scenario in that sense. I think one thing I would like to see is that, I mean, I say this as a fan who has a manager who was more reluctant to play academy players, I understand. But I think if those 2 extra subs will only be allowed to be used on homegrown players, for instance, or rule like something like that, I think it would still be more biased in favour of the teams that have better academies. But at least I feel like that's slightly better than people who have spent loads more money on bringing in other players. I don't know. Maybe that's a biased sort of thing from me, but I feel like there are a lot less clubs would have problems with that because it's encouraging the use of homegrown talent then, and it's allowing that to get better.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I can see the benefits of that 100%. Also, I've often wondered about allowing for extra subs. Say you've made your 3 subs with 20 minutes to go, which often happens, and then you pick up an injury, and that's his game over. You're then down to 10 men. It doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But I think this 5 substitutes thing could potentially be flexible in terms of if you're allowed 3, and then if you pick up an injury, you can make an extra 1.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's dependent on the periods as well you need to do, because again, you're still only allowed 3 substitution periods. So if you use all 3 subs and then you get injured after the 4th one in the 4th period, you're not allowed an extra period for that. I've never liked that rule. I agree. I think if you get an injury, you should be allowed to bring someone on, regardless of how many subs you use. So I suppose we touched on it briefly. I was trying to avoid talking about this, but I suppose we might as well. We talked about brought up the Palace-Chelsea game. We're talking about the squad. I mean, I have to say, obviously it finished 3-2 to Chelsea in the end. I have to say it was a much better performance from us compared to what we've seen. We actually went for it and tried to take the game to them. Chelsea, I thought, I didn't think they were particularly outstanding compared to what we've seen from them since the restart, but they got the job done and their quality clearly shone through. The thing that frustrated me more was the game management during the game. I mean, they made it 3-1. We score immediately after Benteke getting his first goal in months. And then, there's the chance to take the game to them. And then we wait until the 80th minute to bring on the defensive midfielder for arguably our most attacking midfielder, and James McArthur, and then bringing on Andros Townsend for Jordan Ayew. I mean, who's not been looked good the past couple of games. So you just wonder if there was better game management, then we might have actually been able to even nick a draw, even with Dan's miss of the season, you might call it. I mean, that was a heart and mouth moment there, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, so I suppose more from a Chelsea perspective, though, I suppose they've just got to, with the new signings they got in, they've just got to keep ticking along and try and solidify their top 4 position as best they can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Chelsea, I've been really impressed with them this season. When that transfer embargo came in, I was thinking they're going to struggle after losing Hazard, but fair play to Frank Lampard. He's brought the youngsters through. And they're ticking along nicely, and I think they'll definitely be in the Champions League next season. And I think next season, I might go on a limb here. I think they could potentially win the league. I think if they get Kai Havertz in and Ben Chilwell and players like that, I mean, they're going to be a force next season. I think Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely. Chelsea, definitely a team that obviously, as Covent champions, a fan of the Covent champions, I fear Chelsea quite a lot the way they bring in players in. I do think at the moment you mentioned Chilwell and Havertz. Both of them would be massive additions. Certainly Havertz, he's a brilliant footballer, 100%. But they don't, it's weird, it's similar to the Arsenal situation for a long time. They don't strengthen, in my opinion, where needs strengthening most. And it was highlighted in that Palace game the other day. Chelsea defensively, even though Kurt Zuma made that absolute wonder tackle at the end to stop you equalising, defensively, certainly centre-half are where they're weak. Reece James at right back, Aspilicueta at right back, both decent. If you bring Ben Chilwell in, better option than Marcos Alonso, in my opinion, at left back, much better. But still, Rudiger and Zuma, and it's Christensen, isn't it, the other one, have the moments and have the games. Certainly Rudiger, I think he would be the one to stay. But Zuma and Christensen are weak links in that side. And I think Liverpool, to bring it back to us, have proved that you need to get that right before you go and win a league. And City failing to do so this season is proof why, without a solid defence, you don't win leagues.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And with City, there's no doubt that Laporte being injured for so long. I'm not saying if he'd been there the whole season, City would won the league, but I think it would have been a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's a 23-point gap. It's not a 23-point gap with Laporte all season. I couldn't agree more. Yeah,
no, totally. And I think Liverpool especially have been the best demonstration of that. That it's a good, even though obviously you need players that can score goals and win you games, you also need a back four that can seal the points up and keep your confidence high and all that sort of thing.
For a long time, we had the players who might score 3, but we had to score 3 to try and win a game at one point.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when the last season you nearly won the title. Before last, I mean, like in 2013-14, you went to Cardiff and won 6-3. I was it was a great game of football, great for the neutral, but I mean, it's like if you can score 6 goals, surely you must be able to at least only concede 1. Like keep it down as much as you can. But
that's what we were for a long time. We had games, and like I said, it was incredible to watch, even as a fan. But it was always terrifying at the same time because I think the similar sort of time was that Bournemouth game I alluded to, and we were cruising 2-0 up, and all of a sudden there's a bit of pressure, and we just capitulated, and we did that far too often.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. Obviously, it's nowhere near comparable in terms of quality, but I remember, similar story. It was similar at Palace for a while under people like Pardew. I mean, I was at the 5-4 defeat to Swansea a few years ago. I mean, that game was mental. I mean, it's not as bad looking back because both teams managed to stay up in the end, but like it was just being in that away end was just. I couldn't believe we got it back to 4-3 because we were playing so badly, both teams, and then we just completely capitulated with. And he said before the game as well that a clean sheet is our top priority. And he concedes 5 goals to freaking Bradley. I mean, my God.
Didn't quite pan out. I'm not surprised you brought that season up with Dwight Gale late on in the season, breaking our hearts.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid that one, actually. I was trying to be nice. But yeah, now you mentioned it. Yeah, I mean, I remember listening to that game. I was like, my dad even said he turned the TV off because, I can't be bothered to watch Palace get spanked 6 or 7-0 or whatever it was.
It looked like 6-7. It did at one point.
It did, yeah. And then obviously we all know what happened from there. I'm not going to lie though. I thought that first goal was a really, really lucky deflection. I think if that hadn't gone in, I think it would have been a totally different game.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah. Well, yeah. Basically what I'm trying to say is that as bad as the football has been under people like Roy Hodgson, sometimes you do feel that when we score a goal, we're pretty much safe in the game and we can see the result out. So it is that fine balance with scoring goals and playing good football and getting results for sure. So yeah, let's move on to the highlight of our podcast, I guess you could say, that let's all laugh at. Have you guys got your nominations for this week? What have you found the funniest this week?
For me, it's got to be. I've already mentioned it in the chat, but it's got to be the Son and Lloris fight, scuffle, whatever you want to call it, on the way off. I know it's obvious, but it's been a pretty drab week other than that in terms of the football. But in my opinion, but yeah, it's got to be that because it brings back memories of was it Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer all them years ago? I mean, it wasn't quite on par with that because that was a proper fight. This thing was, I think he push Lo Celso in the way so we didn't have to actually get near him.
Yeah, it was something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? It said Lloris ran over and shoved Son in the back before the players went down the tunnel with the pair having separated by their teammates. I mean, I actually didn't watch the game, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. But
basically he didn't track back, did he, Son? I think there was a chance late on in the half, and Lloris believed that Son, and it was literally half time after it happened. So Lloris as captain chased Son basically down the tunnel. But before he got near him, he shoved, I think it was Lo Celso, in the way. So instead of actually getting face to face with him and causing a scene, he made sure it was all very nice and calm.
It was very much like a hold me back, wasn't it?
Yeah. Don't let me get near him, but also make sure you stay in the way.
Yeah, I mean, what I found funniest about it was Jose Mourinho calling the whole thing beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, for a second though, I thought he was like, for some reason, for a split second, I thought he was still Man United manager. Because that's why I thought he'd made it, because I thought they were playing them, and then that was the moment. But then that game was obviously a couple of weeks ago. But no, I mean, he said, you could see he's clearly more than happy about the result, so he just saw the sort of thing as a bit more funny, but.
It's the sort of thing he'll enjoy as well. I think he said, didn't he? He said, I want to see them show a bit of passion, and I think he used the word fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the sort of thing he'll lap up, because let's face it, we can all agree Tottenham have been pretty void of passion since the Champions League final, really.
Yeah, sure.
This season's been such a strange season for them, and now bringing Mourinho in and then fighting on the way down a tunnel is probably the icing on the cake in some ways.
Yeah, sort of epitomises their season almost.
Yeah, bizarre season.
I think it is more, and we talk about balance all the time. It is that fine line between having passion and wanting to do well, and not your whole dressing room completely falling apart. Because we know Mourinho definitely has a history there.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I'm not a Mourinho fan, and that sounds outrageous, and loads of people love him, and I get that. But the way he goes about winning trophies, and I know winning trophies is fantastic, but he ends up, as you say, just completely ruining atmospheres in clubs. He leaves them a worse place than he found them, is what I'd say all the time. He tends to walk away from a job in the worst possible circumstances, whether he's sacked, resigned, whatever it may be. It always seems to be a few months before that club gets back on an even keel after he's been there.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I'm not a Mourinho fan either. You're not alone. I'm not a fan of him at all. And the fact he's gone to Spurs as well, it's just completely. I'm just like, well, it gets worse. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it just gives you a reason to hate him now.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't like him anyway. Now he's gone to Spurs. Now it's just like, well, what can I say about him? But my comment, well, let's all laugh at moment for me this week. It's not really a funny moment, but it was the Arsenal Leicester game. It was David Luiz he could have got sent off for the silly elbow. I don't know if you two saw it. He was very lucky, and the fact he turned around and went, I didn't do anything. I mean, it was naughty what he done, and he could have gone. So, I mean, it's not a particularly funny moment, but it was just his reaction of like, well, I didn't touch him. And it was like, David, you really elbowed him in the head, mate. You did.
It's David Luiz, though, isn't it? He's a funny fella, full stop, really.
He is, and you know what? The annoying thing about him is, and I've been very critical about him since he joined Arsenal. He's a fantastic ball player, and there aren't many better passers of the ball than him. He just can't defend, and I've always said, why doesn't someone just play him in front of the defence? You know, he can ping balls about all day, and he's a great passer. He just can't defend. I don't know why he plays centre back. He's useless.
Yeah, David Luiz has definitely made his headlines on this show before. If I hadn't actually forgotten the segment in the first episode, he probably would have won it in the end. But yeah, I don't think anyone could blame that. And giving him a new contract as well. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, how long have you got, really? I mean, I just don't understand the way Arsenal work. He's obviously good for the dressing room. He's not a bad player all round. He's just not a very good defender. So he's obviously good for the dressing room. He's good for the young players coming through. Would I have gave him a year contract? Probably not. But that's a whole different ball game. The way Arsenal work, when you give Mesut Ozil 350 grand a week and don't play him, which is another thing. Where is he? Is he injured, or I don't know where he is. He's been furloughed, I think.
It's such a strange model at Arsenal. I can say that now as a Liverpool fan, us having good times. But it's so bizarre to see, because obviously a massive club like yourselves with such great recent history, and then you've got Mesut Ozil situation, like you say, and then before that the Aaron Ramsey one. I love Aaron Ramsey. I think he's a brilliant player, and he's allowed to walk away on a free. It's so strange to see, and obviously Alexis Sanchez in the midst of all that. But as for the David Luiz contract, I've got to say, it was what made it all the more bizarre was the timing of it. He just had that stinker against City, and then he comes out with a new contract days later. I mean, he must have something on Arteta.
Yeah, he must have. Football's a strange game, isn't it? You seem to get rewarded for being bad. It's bizarre, isn't it?
He certainly does, yeah. Yeah,
it's just bizarre. And, with Mesut Ozil, on his day, he's different class. But I don't understand why he's not playing. He's not even in the squad half the time. And he seems to pick and choose his games. And I'm liking what Arteta's doing. Because Mesut Ozil's obviously not doing something in training. And Arteta's taking no nonsense, which is kind of what Wenger and Emery didn't do. Arteta's not afraid to drop you just because of your name, and that's what Arsenal needed. They needed someone like that, a bit like Guendouzi, who's another player that I'm a massive fan of, but he's obviously annoyed Arteta for his attitude.
Yeah, it's a strange on that Guendouzi situation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, he's talented, but I think he kicked off in the summer when he had a tour. He wasn't very happy, and his behaviour at Brighton, as much as we all. On that day, I would love to have got Neil Maupay by the throat, but you can't.
As a Palace fan, to be honest, I can't disagree with that statement.
You just can't do it. It was just a bit of a bizarre one, that, and he's being punished now, and we seem to be a better side without him in the team, which is weird.
Yeah, I think again it all comes down to a mentality thing. I think if a player's thoughts are clearly elsewhere, like Mesut Ozil's or potentially Guendouzi's, then sometimes even if the team would technically be better with them in, sometimes the team as a whole performs better when you're just giving them a bit of rest period. But I mean, again, before in the Arsenal game, a couple of Arsenal games before, there were times where you think they need a bit of creativity on the field, and Mesut Ozil's at least put him on the bench. At least he's an option. But yeah, I suppose if he's made his mind up, then there's not much the club can do. So yeah, moving on to my nomination. I'm not going to lie, I'm half tempted to nominate myself for that howl at the beginning.
I'll second if you want.
So yeah, I've gone for a slightly different approach. I've gone for Jim White. I don't know if any of you have seen his comments on
TalkSport. Yeah, I heard that yesterday. What was that all about?
Yeah. So for those who haven't heard, he had an argument about mixed allegiances on the show, and he basically didn't see the problem with just all of a sudden if the club does badly, then just switching clubs and going to another one. I mean, in my opinion, Jim White is the quintessential person who works in football that doesn't actually really care about football. They just go in, turn up, do their job, and get paid, and then go home. And deliberately say outrageous stuff online to get views, or at least it's provocative stuff, we'll say. Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I'm not going to lie, there's several times where I've wanted to go and support another club when supporting Palace, I'm not going to lie, but I've stuck with it because it's just like, I'm not even sure how to explain it. It's just like it's the football fan in me. I'd feel bad going to anyone else, and it's like I've been going to the club since I was 5 years old, and I had a season ticket when I was living in Bromley. So it's like I can't imagine supporting anyone else really. And there have been times where I haven't been able to go, and I've been lived in a different part of the country and not been able to go to as many games and not been able to keep up with them as much. But I always supported them. I always want them to do well. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's different if I hate to use the term armchair fan, but if you're not able to go to games and you're not be able to follow them as closely, then maybe it's a bit different. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh, I mean, being an Arsenal fan, there's been many times I've hated football full stop and never want to watch it ever again, if I'm honest. But to change your team, I mean, Arsenal could lose every week, and I don't think I could ever say the words I support Tottenham. It just makes me feel sick even thinking about it, to be honest.
Well, not even Tottenham, just anyone.
Anyone. I mean, being a football fan, it's like a family, isn't it? It's, you go to the game, you see the same people, and it's like a big community. And to switch allegiances, that's just, I don't know what that. When I heard it, I was a bit like, what are you even talking about? Yeah, it's a very, very bizarre thing to say. I know that much.
Yeah, it like you said at the start, really, it's one of them things. He's either said it for the sake of saying it and because it's half controversial and people like us will talk about it the next night, or he actually believes it and he simply doesn't get football. I think he's a Rangers fan, so I can't imagine him going to watch or support Celtic, but who knows. As far as I'm concerned, like you've already said, you've said everything that needs to be said, really, not a chance. It's just part of you. You brought up on it. I was certainly brought up on it. That's why I'm a Liverpool fan, No
matter how much your host tries to convince you otherwise.
Exactly. You know what? If I liked penalties, I'd have been better off being a United fan. They've just scored, I think it's their 700th penalty of the season against Villa. They're 1-0 up, and they have,
haven't they? Yeah, we're sorry, we forgot to mention. Every time we record these episodes, it's always during a game. And yeah, tonight's Aston Villa v Man United, and as Dan said, they've just got 1-0 up the Bruno Fernandes penalty. So yeah, yet
another penalty. You missed that out. As far as supporting other teams go, it's not even. I mean, I think everyone. I don't know if you guys are the same, but and I must say before we carry on, I've been down to Palace Sellers Park quite a lot, and I really like it down there. It's good ground. Okay. I enjoy it.
I've been there once. I know it was Palace versus Everton, and Loic Remy scored. No, sorry. Loic Remy was absolutely terrible that day for Palace. Leighton Baines scored, I think.
I was going to say, I don't think Loic Remy scored a goal for us either. He spent about 3/4 of his time in the injury room.
And obviously, being an Arsenal fan, I was just I was a neutral. But he was just like walking about, and in the end, I just stood up and went, "Are you going to move or what?" It's just like, I'm not even a Palace fan, and I was getting the ump with him. I can't imagine what he was like being a fan.
It's a good little ground though. I like the little hut you pen the away fans in before we go through to the stand. It's good. I enjoy that. But yeah, no, I think everyone supports a lower league sort of club. I certainly do. I've got a couple around me that I'll go and watch. But in terms of that passion, that who you want to win and what have you, there's not a chance. You're not walking away, are you?
No, definitely not.
I mean, it's good to hear what you say that about Palace, obviously because it's my club. But I mean, we always have been one of the more communal, sort of family clubs in the Premier League. No, we're not the only one, of course. I'll never argue with the best, but we definitely have that very, very strongly within our club. And it's good that other teams recognise that. And obviously, there's Selhurst Park being a more run-down, old-school ground. A lot of people enjoy the romance of that. Yeah. And I think with stuff like, with working in football media, you're a lot more. This is what we talk about with, corporatism and stuff ruining football. Is you're a lot more. It's not even necessarily their fault. It's just they're a lot more disconnected from it, so they don't experience the sort of communal atmosphere of going to a football match. Even I don't go to that many football matches because I live so far away. But every time I do, I recognise the feel that's there. And when you haven't gone for so long, it's difficult to recognise that. So, I suppose you do get more disconnected to it. But there are some things that go that just go too far. Where you just go like, wait, hang on a minute, this is just totally wrong. This just isn't making sense. But yeah, that's what I'm going for. What do you guys think then? Who do you think should win?
The Jim White one. You make a good point.
Yeah, I think Jim White because it's just an outrageous thing to say. To be honest,
got to be. Yeah, it's got to be.
This is called Let's All Laugh At, not with. So.
Yeah, I think Jim White. I think it's a very good one to be honest because Jim White for me as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yep. So okay. Congratulations, Jim White. You're a loser, but you're still a winner on here. Don't worry.
He'll be happy.
Yeah.
He'll have his yellow tie on to celebrate, I'm sure. I've never known.
Is that what he wears it for? Was that for celebrations, or was that just?
I think that's just transfer deadline day. But transfer deadline day has become such a non-event over the past 3 or 4 years that how can he still be so excited about it all the time? I'll never get my head around that.
As a Palace fan, I've just trained myself not to get excited because the past 2 deadline days in a row, we've been linked with all these players and trying to get deals over the line. We've ended up with absolutely sod all.
Nothing happens.
Exactly.
The only good part about transfer deadline day was, for a short period, the fans turned up outside the stadium and they might be carrying something half offensive. But outside
the purple dildo, that was fine. Don't forget that.
That was what it was about. And now it's all gone.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand why they banned it, but it is disappointing from a viewer's perspective.
Yeah. Exactly.
One thing I forgot I was going to bring out very quickly as well before we end is that in relation to Jim White I don't know if you guys remember this time last year with the whole Bolton and Bury scenario. They had that countdown clock for like the last, until the deadline where they had to submit and potentially go under. It's like, if you're a fan of those, you're literally just turning this into entertainment. Like, if you're a fan of those clubs, imagine how you must feel. These guys in suits who have no idea who your players are even called, just, counting down the hours until your club potentially goes under. I mean, the end it did go under in Bury's case.
It does. It's almost offensive, isn't it? And Jim White tends to, this is going to sound really harsh, but perhaps true, he tends to feed off clubs in them sort of situations. Charlton have had loads of trouble of late. You guys might know a little bit better than me, being from down them ways. But Charlton have had problems, and he tends to slap into that. He likes it almost. And obviously the Bury one, Macclesfield the same. He always speaks to the owners and what have you. And I think obviously the Wigan situation now, I can see it coming, the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Again, well, I think I mentioned it at the start before that it's all about getting views, isn't it? It's all about we all know that outrage and fear sells in any form of media. So I think that's definitely slipping its way into football somehow, which is a shame. But I mean, these are private companies, so there's not exactly much we can do about it other than stop viewing, I guess. But so yeah, that's all we've got time for this episode. So thanks for watching. Be sure to drop us a like and a follow, whatever platform you're on. You can find us on YouTube and SoundCloud at Let's All Laugh At, a football podcast, as well as Twitter at LALA _ podcast. Be sure to check out Johnny and Dan's works on Last Word on Sport, Extra Time Talk, Life's a Pitch, and their social media. Links in the description as always. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.